Okay, welcome to the Soul Lead Revolution with me, your host, Yolandi Bosov. And I am so excited to introduce my guest today. It's my beautiful soul sister, Lalena Rose. And so I've got so much to tell you guys about working with her. She is the founder of the Dragon Mystery School. She's a spiritual midwife focusing on embodied astrology, working with womb alchemy, inner child, and shadow journeying. And yeah, all I can say is like working with her is a bit like boom, head shot open and heart wide open. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Yolandi. It's a gift and an honor to share space with you. As always, when we come together, there is this boom energy between us. So thank you for having me. I'm really grateful.
Oh.
Yes, so I would define myself as a vessel for the primal feminine. It's something which has taken time to weave into being through a journey of remembrance. And with that, being that vessel for the primal feminine comes into play this aspect of my soul song, which is to be a spiritual midwife. And what that looks and feels like to me is creating a deep connection between the womb of Gaia and the womb of the cosmos. So essentially, it's a journey of rebirth. So I would say that my intention is to be a vessel that's able to transmit the frequencies of primordial love from these two dimensions, above and below, and support in the alchemization of people's journeys and connecting them back into that core essential part of self.
Oh, I love that. And it's so interesting that you're saying that because those two things have been coming up. I mean, we even journeyed like last month in one of our meditations between those two parts, and it feels like it's so important now. It's like the universe is literally going, you guys need to reconnect with these parts of yourselves. So tell us a little bit more about like how you guide people to that reconnection space again.
So it's twofold. I'm a mama, and so a lot of my service to humanity comes through supporting and guiding my beautiful sons. And so when I'm in process where time and space allows, how I do that is transmitting it through creativity. So through art, through word, through sound, through poetry, which I share on a platform that I've created. And then akin to that, I create sacred space. So I open doors to the multidimensional spaces that we have available to us, and I act as a guide, as a torchbearer. So what that looks like in layman's terms is I work with embodied astrology, and what that means is that instead of receiving an interpretation from a third party about your birth chart, about your sacred birth map, the blueprint of your soul, essentially. How we work is we work within a medicine wheel, an astrology medicine wheel, and you then become the point that guides your own intuition into the spaces and places that can connect you through your unconscious back to these two aspects of self, through to the womb of the earth and to the womb of the cosmos. For me, it's all about embodiment. The body and this vessel that we walk this earth plane in holds the key to these places. And the more embodied we can get, the more capacity we have to bring in these frequencies and to hold them and to be that pillar of light for ourselves, for our family, for our community. So that's one way. And then the other way is through womb alchemy. And this was a journey, a deep personal journey of reclamation and healing of this sacred portal within our body. And I call it womb alchemy because of the capacity that we as the feminine and the masculine, but as the feminine, whether we hold a womb or not, this space within our body is a deep sacred portal that connects us to the womb of the earth and to the womb of the cosmos. And so we work in the realms of sacred sexual healing and awakening, reactivating your life force energy within your body, clearing any trauma that you may have carried from this lifetime, from past lifetimes. Again, just realigning, clearing, and making way for higher voltages of light and connection to come through.
Oh, that's so yummy. So I had an embodied astrology session, and it was it was unlike anything that I've experienced before, because exactly as you say, it was a process of like in this medicine wheel, like finding my truth again, like finding, it was like, for me, it was a big thing about like finding my voice and like getting out of that fear. My wounded healer like showed up so strongly. And I thought that was so beautiful, because it made it so much more profound that like you took me to my answers, but I took me to my answers too. So it was like, so it almost shows you again like your own inner wisdom. So for me, what I love about your work is how you put the spotlight on us being able to take ourselves back to ourselves, and like you say, you're this torchbearer, this space holder that works with the energy and creates. For me, it was like a vortex in time that we stood in, and I just got to literally see all these things happening around me, and it was fucking mind-blowing to me. Like I don't actually have other words for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, with that, like, where did the inspiration for this come from? We spoke a little bit before we had this now conversation here about the dark goddess and all of that. So give us a little bit of information about how you were led to this and how this all happened.
Sure. Thank you for the reflection on your experience and that. And before I touch into where it kind of began again, that is the key thread of what I'm being asked to do, is to support the remembrance of the intrinsic body wisdom and the intrinsic healer within humanity. So instead of looking outside of ourselves all the time, it's that truth and that knowing that we hold those keys within our own body, and very much connected to bringing us back to the land and bringing us back to our bodies. But I do not see myself necessarily as a healer. I do not see myself as someone who has the capacity to change something within you. I see myself as a space holder. I see myself as the permission slip, as it were, for you to explore your sovereignty, for you to explore maybe some of the places that are really challenging to do alone, and through my own life journey and through my own initiations, I have been blessed, if you can say it that way, through all of these incredibly dark spaces, to be able to stand in that space with integrity and trust that I have the capacity to hold them. So yeah, it's a really key point, I think, for me and my work for people to understand. So where this landed for me was, I was actually going through a deep dark night of the soul myself, and I was questioning everything and every perception of where my path was going and what it was that I was being invited to embody deeper and on a deeper level. And I had worked personally within the embodied astrology medicine wheel myself prior to deciding that this was something that actually was a soul gift of mine. And I had done that for a long time. There's a personal story of where the soul-led work begins, but we can touch in on that later. But that's where that personal journey began. And it was through this deep, dark night of the soul that I suddenly heard the voice of the dark goddess. And I had always had an affinity to her through my life, but it was in a very distorted face. So it was the face of Lilith when she was in exile, wandering through the desert, when she had been separated from Adam, when she had been told that she was not equal to man. And so she chose to go on a personal journey of exile. And this is the stories that we have woven about the dark goddess, this demonic face of the feminine, the face of the feminine that will tear you apart, and the face of the feminine that is so hidden and shamed. Our sexuality, our personal power, our wisdom, our gifts of intuition and sight and hands-on healing, medicine woman gifts, you know. I was walking a path of distorted dark goddess energy for a long time, and that's a whole nother story. But through this journey of reclamation, through my own personal journey of sexual healing, through my own personal journey of trust and embodiment in that particular time and space when I was going through this dark night of the soul, and I can honestly say it was probably the most challenging one I've ever experienced. She came to me strongly, and she called me her daughter, and she asked me to step into creating space for others to experience that. And it was through the practice of embodied astrology that she wanted me to dive into this work. And the reason was because the unconscious parts of self that we carry from this lifetime and from many lifetimes are just residing there somewhere in the back of our mind, in the back of our consciousness. And in my opinion, there's many doors that we can open to access these parts of self. And I honor each one deeply. But for me, it was through this, through accessing your blueprint, in my opinion, the planets that were present as you took your first breath, and the energies of those planets that were then seeded and impregnated into you as you took your first breath. Those are your unconscious parts of self. And so it's all based on archetypal energies. It's all based on, threads of consciousness. And so that's really, in a short space, like how it landed that I got into practicing embodied astrology.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm like, that's amazing. And I just also what you were saying about that journey with the distorted dark goddess, I want to go a little bit in there, because it is that what's been painted and what we've been taught and the only stuff that we've known. And it's also, again, now as we're going into this new age that we're literally like stepping over, this threshold that I feel like we're stepping over. It's like to get out of that and to move into, it's almost, it's a brand new way of looking at all of the darkness, right? So I want to feel a little bit more into that, because for me, there's a stigma of like, it's all love and light and it's all that, but the deepest revolutions of our soul, the like evolution of us, is in the darkness. So and that's where I feel people are in such fear of that, but it's for us to bring that back into consciousness, into understanding. So tell me a bit more about like how you feel about that.
Yeah, just every cell of my body is alive as you say that, because that's it. You've just spoken on behalf of the dark goddess. You know, it's the times that we're moving into now. There's a book out there which I think the quote of the title of the book was "The future belongs to those that can see in the dark."
Sure.
And yeah, and I truly believe that. I truly believe that we as the feminine, the resonance of our feminine energy holds the key to these transitioning times. And the fact of the matter is, through the ages and through the ways that we have been suppressed and shut down, and all of these parts of us, these gifts that we hold to carry this darkness within our womb, knowing that it is through the radiant darkness that the light is birthed. You know, it's like the light and love is exactly, it's beautiful, but we can't hold light and love unless we are fully rooted into the dark. It's because that's where it births from. It births from the womb of no thing, that source of light. So the dark goddess is calling us home, and she's calling us home to trust that we can face the parts of self that we are scared to face, that we can look at them and we can alchemize them and transmute them. And once we have done that, like I say, for me, it's like threads, threads of Shakti is what I'll say. And like our body is woven with these threads of Shakti, and through the different expressions, these threads have blocks in them. They're not clear channels, they're not clear threads. And so the dark goddess is where we can begin to allow these blockages to be released. And she's the gatekeeper. I think that's the final thing, is what I can say really to speak into that is the dark goddess and the darker parts of us. It's the gatekeeper for these times. We need to embrace these parts of ourselves. And it's quite a task to be tasked with sharing that truth, because there's so much fear around that truth. There's so much fear around that truth, because what does it actually mean if we as women step into our power? What does it actually mean if we as women reclaim our sexual sovereignty? And does it mean that we're going to be ostracized? Does it mean we're going to be kicked out of our tribe? Does it mean that we're going to lose things that feel comfortable and close to us? A lot of the time it does, and that's really fucking scary. Sorry, excuse my language.
Hey, there's no judgment here.
It's really scary for women, but if we can come together, hold each other in that, creating spaces like this, Yolandi, you're creating the space for women to come together and to trust that no matter what, the more we can open that channel within ourselves, the deeper we can go. And the deeper we can go, the more rooted we become. And the deeper our roots become, the higher we can expand out and ascend into whatever it is that Mama Gaia and the cosmos is asking us to do.
Sure. That is so beautiful. I'm like, I just want to somewhat cry right now, because it is that, like, it's those moments, and it is what we're doing. It's just like all of us, I think, is so many of us now going like, you need to go in, you need to go in. And it feels like it's the start of so many beautiful new things, and it makes me excited. And I know what you're saying about the fear, because it is that like we are all being pushed out of those comfort zones that we have lived in for many lifetimes. And I think I very often I see it as like they started rising up and then it was pushed down again, and now it's just like almost like there's such a big push from all of these beautiful energies to just go, no, this is it now. Like we're pushing through this last bit to be seen and to be heard, right? So exactly. And I love that. And I just wish I had like 4 hours to talk to you about this all, but it's just like for you, like that space of moving, because it's that push to being in, and for me, you are in your authenticity and you are in your darkness and your light. When I look at your work, when I read what you write, when I see what you create. So if someone is listening today and they're like, but how do I even start? Like, where do I start to embrace and go down into that darkness of myself? What would you say to them?
I would encourage people to firstly create space in their life for it. We can get met with various energies every single day, from all channels, and it can be quite a thing to navigate these incoming energies and how they show up and how we're meant to weave with them. So for me, as a foundational practice, it is committing to creating space daily if you can, but as much as you can, dedicated space. That's important, because if you can't create the space, you're not going to be able to go in and value. Secondly, I would say a beautiful door opener is myth and archetype. So we are living a myth. We are living an unconscious myth right now. And no matter what your beliefs, we, through collective energies and through collective archetypal processes and journeys, we hold myths within ourselves. So as a very first starting point, diving into myth, and someone like Demetra George, Mysteries of the Dark Moon, is a beautiful place to start. And she weaves in the archetype of the dark goddess in a way that will start to open up doors. And then finding spaces and places that you can step into to be in sisterhood, to journey with these kind of energies. Because you can quite easily open the doors if you're just starting and you're like, okay, where do I start? Touching into it on your own is a beautiful place. And then when you start to feel that you might want to explore that deeper, it's then finding the spaces and places where there's other women that are ready to journey. Because when women come together, I mean, magic literally happens. Sitting next to a sister who you've never met before. I brought together 9 women in circle last week, and we journeyed with Persephone. None of the women knew each other, and each one had a unique Persephone story that mirrored the one that sat next to them. It was magic. It was magic that these people had found this feminine space where they could come and grieve and be seen and be heard. And even in just that acknowledgement, so much was lifted without the embodiment practices, without this, without any of the actual work.
Yeah.
Those are my suggestions. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And I think for me, it is now like starting to circle again. It feels just so important, like pulling in and like energetically just being able to be with people again, and like being in that space of just, it is just so beautiful, because it's like, somehow when I see you being vulnerable, I allow myself to be vulnerable. When I see your darkness, when I see your light, like I can allow myself to show that as well. And I think that allowance thing is always, for me, is really important, because we're always holding back. And when there's someone who goes first, then we just basically, let's jump as well, right? So I feel, and that's where people like you come in, because you create a space of allowance for people also to go into, this is my darkness, this is who I am, this is what I'm all about, through your work, through your writing, all of that. So I think, I just want to thank you for that, because that's just like so beautiful.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. And I just want to thank the Dark Goddess for that, because essentially, without my tethered connection to the womb of Gaia and to the womb of the cosmos, and without the journey that I have personally been on, I would never step into a space like this unless I was 100% clear that I had the capacity to hold those kind of spaces and to bring people back. Because that's another thing within our community, is that many people claim that, they'll take you into the underworld and you can journey there. I invite people to be really discerning about the kind of spaces that they step into, because it's highly important, it's imperative that if you're going to journey into these kind of spaces, that you are brought back to middle world, that you're brought back to the ground, because otherwise you're going to get lost somewhere. And so that, through my own initiation process, is what, when I stand in circle and I have the ancestors of these feminine archetypes literally surrounding me, they are guiding me to journey down and then to journey back up with everybody. So that's really important, I think.
Yes. And we forget that, because we're always, so often, like, you're so keen to go, right? You're just like, yes, we're going to do this, I'm all amped up. And then it's just like, well, what are we actually doing here? Like, and that grounding thing is like huge. And I'm just, I feel like I'm harping on about it all the time, because that's that. And it's almost like, for me at the minute, how it's feeling, it's like the cosmos is calling us, Gaia is calling us, and it's like all of that. Like when we are so grounded in the knowing of those two, that's when the whole expansion and everything you've said today, it's just so beautiful confirmation for me, because like being completely hooked into that energetically, like held there, we are just these like amazing light pillars. It's just,
It's
yeah.
right. We become the chalice. We become the vessel. And
Yeah.
then we dance between the worlds and we
Yeah.
dance between the realms. And it's not unique to me. It's not unique to you. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's really important. We all have that capacity if
Yeah.
we're willing to create the space, you know.
Yes.
So yeah.
And what for me is magical is like you saying all this, and like I'm like, yes, but like I've seen this, like this is what's happening, and it's such a beautiful, I'm just so grateful, because it's like she's speaking to all of us in her own way, isn't she? She's rising up for so many people, and like you said earlier on, there's like people are doing it in different ways, but we're all basically doing the same thing, aren't we? It's just
So for me,
magic.
that exactly. So for me, that I call that the frequency of primordial love, right?
Okay.
So the essence of all of these different um, traditions, lineages, paths, modalities, all of these different threads, in my opinion, they all weave back into the dark womb of no thing, which is, to me, it's the frequency of primordial love. It's the unconditional love that is at the beginning of all time. You know,
Yeah.
it's where we first came from, that first frequency, that first sound, that first light.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% in
Oh
alignment.
man. So I could literally speak to you forever, but we are running out of time. So, guys, like you have to follow this woman. Like she is wisdom beyond wisdom. So, I have about 25,000 questions I still want to ask you. But what I do want you to do today is tell us a little bit more about what you're doing. Where can people find you? How can they work with you? How can they, just follow what you're writing and your platform and stuff. So share a bit with us about that, please.
You sure? Mm. So you can find me on, I'm not very much on social media. I'm calling in spaces and places that we can weave as community and feminine, without necessarily needing social media. There's nothing wrong with it, but for me, it's a journey that I'm taking. But you can find me on social media. Lalena_Rose is my one platform, and that is where I share my my art, my writings. It's my transmissions, basically. So that's my art, my writing, movement, reflection. If you would like to work with me, then you can find me on Dragon Rose Mystery School, and again, that's on Instagram. That's the only social media platform I'm on.
Mm.
My website is either lalenaRose.com or dragonrosemysteryschool.com. And yeah, you can find loads more information there. I have just started about 3 circles in. I've got a monthly women's circle on the first Saturday of every month, and that's in Frome, Somerset in the UK. It's called Dreaming with the Mothers, and it's a journey of exploration into the dark feminine, through embodied astrology practices, through womb alchemy, through archetype, through myth. We're going to take a little break in January and February, and we're going to start up again in March. So we're currently going to be doing that. So I would love for you to weave with me there. And otherwise, I have different offerings, embodied astrology sessions that you can come and join me on one-to-one, or online or in person. And I just want to share a beautiful retreat as well that I have next year in Avalon. So a lot of what I haven't spoken into today is, and I think this is more what I was saying, is coming back to the land.
Yeah.
I believe that the land is where the codes and the secrets and the wisdom is kept, and that is where my journey began, was going back to the land. So I hold a yearly retreat where women can come to Avalon, and we work in temple. We journey through the mysteries of the priestess of the rose, and we journey through the different aspects and different gateways on the sacred sites in Avalon. And we work together in temple with sexual feminine mysteries and the arts of the womb and the connection of the heart and the womb. So that's next July,
Okay.
22nd of July.
Okay, so if you're in the UK and you're around that part, like, please guys, like do yourself a favor. It is absolutely magical. And yeah, I can so recommend the embodied astrology just from my personal experience. Huge. And yeah, so thank you so much for just coming to talk to us today, and I really appreciate your time and your energy.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for the space that you've created. And it's been an honor. I love the connection between the resonance, should I say, between what we are feeling and seeing. So
Mm.
thank you.
It's magical. Awesome. Okay, so have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for joining us today. And I will be back in 2 weeks' time.